Future Warrior, Dawn of the Deimos. Chapter 4. Stalker strode onto the bridge of the Artemis. He had left Link and the others of the CCU to prepare an initial intelligence report for Fleet Command and to oversee preparations to redeploy to the surface of Pavonis Prime. There was something more important he had to do. Captain Jansen seemed a little surprised to see him on the bridge so soon. "What can I do for you, Battle Commander?" "I need a moment of your time, ma'am. I'm kind of busy. I think you can see that." It wasn't a request, Captain. For a moment, Captain Sandra Jansen didn't react, and Stalker began to think she might explode. Her reply came in a strained voice that was heavy with meaning. "You've got 30 seconds, Commander. Make good use of them. I need you to contact the fleet flagship and ask to talk to the commander of the Pathfinders on board. Once you get him on the line, patch it through to my suit. I'll also need access to a secure link channel to my regimental CO." The captain turned from her control panel and looked Stalker in the face, her complexion turning scarlet. "You want me to contact my commanding admiral and ask him to put some Pathfinder," she spat the word, "on the line so he can talk to you and then give you a secure link? Against strict standing orders to limit all non-executive level communications, so you can have a chat with your CO. Is that what you're asking?" Stalker broke into a smile. "You have it exactly, Captain. Please put them through as soon as you have them." Stalker turned and walked out of the bridge without looking back, leaving a stunned Captain Jansen in his wake. He had almost made it back to the hangar bay when his helmet that he was carrying cradled in his arm beeped. Stalker quickly slipped it on, and a moment later the stern voice of Captain Jansen came through his ears. "There's a Pathfinder holding on the line for you." "Thank you, Captain. And my secure link?" There was a pause. "It's being routed now. And one more thing, Commander, Terra Nova or not, you pull a stunt like that again on my bridge, and I'll have you expelled from the UEDF. "I wouldn't have it any other way, ma'am." There was a click, and the connection went dead. Stalker saw there were two flashing icons in his HUD. They were both encrypted communication links. Under each one was a source code. One he saw was from the US Africa, while the other was from the Aquarius. He activated the link to the Africa, and immediately he heard a new voice. It was a man. The voice was calm and clear, but had an edge to it that was as hard as steel. Well, Stalker, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I thought our presence on the fleet was unknown, but clearly our security isn't as good as I thought." "Actually, your security isn't at fault. I just knew that you lot wouldn't be far away." "Indeed. Most perceptive of you. You ever thought about joining the Pathfinders? There's always a place for a resourceful man like you." "Do I know you?" "No, we've never met, but I know you. Your name is well known amongst the Pathfinders. We make it our business to know who is worth watching." "Somehow I'm not surprised," Stalker remarked. "Little surprises you from what I hear, but that's enough chit-chat. I'm rather pressed for time. What can I do for you, Battle Commander?" "I just thought you might want to know that your suspicions are correct. The Deimos were behind the attack on the Cerberus. They are here." There was a long silence, and Stalker would have thought the connection had been cut if he could not see the flashing indicator in his HUD. The voice reappeared. "How can you be sure?" "We have only reports of battle damage. Not clear evidence of any alien presence being found on the Cerberus. The ship has been cleansed of any trace of whoever carried out the attack. But I found something they missed, a fragment of a claw embedded in a wall. I saw the Deimos skeletons on Mars. It's the same. Trust me, Pathfinder, they are here." Stalker severed the link and activated the second to the Aquarius. "D, you there?" "Yes, Stalker, what's all this about? You're upsetting the brass over here something fierce. You trying to hold up the Terra Nova traditions?" Stalker laughed. "Just doing my part, D. Just doing my part." Stalker heard D return the laugh before his voice turned serious. "All right, Stalker, you've got my attention. What have you got?" "They're here, D. I found a Deimos claw embedded in a steel bulkhead on the Cerberus. God damn it. Something tells me after this we're going to miss the good old days when people were only killed by other people." "Roger that, D. Our old friends the Pathfinders are here with as well. I just got off the horn with them. Figures. Where trouble is they usually aren't far away." Stalker was about to reply with something witty when something suddenly occurred to him, and he stopped in his tracks. "D, those bastards had a spy in the boarding teams. What are you talking about?" The Pathfinder I spoke to, he said he knew that there had been no evidence of the Deimos found by the boarding teams. We were under strict communication silence the whole time and only used our local comnets. They had to have had a man on the inside. You sure they weren't going off the reports you sent to the command ship? We haven't sent any yet. I left Link and a Marines major to compile them. There's no way that they could have known unless they had someone aboard the Cerberus. Stalker, you had better watch yourself. I worked with the Pathfinders before I rejoined with you on Mars after I was wounded. I don't doubt their loyalty to Earth, but some of their methods leave a lot to be desired. And if you're correct, someone who is in the sweep teams, maybe even one of your own men, is a Pathfinder agent. Stalker walked into the hangar bay with a cold, new determination. He had fought the enemies of Earth on 4 systems, and he never had to worry about the loyalty of his men or those he fought alongside. Not even during the height of the war on Mars had he ever feared betrayal from within the Terra Nova's ranks. He had spent the time heading back to the bay after talking to Dee, racking his brain about who could be the Pathfinder informer. He had carefully gone through each of the men in his CCU and others he knew in his company and could find no fault. He had not had a replacement in his company since a training accident almost a year ago, when one of his men had been killed by a stray round during a live fire exercise. It was always worse to lose men in training than in combat. The resulting internal inquiry had cleared Stalker of any blame. It had just been an accident, but Stalker still blamed himself for the man's death. That it was an accident didn't make writing the letter to the man's family any easier. Stalker paused on the verge of the hangar's large open space. Men were hurrying about here and there, some in the black EEA of the Terra Nova and others in the distinctive Marines' splinter camouflage. Stalker watched them for a moment, looking at each man in turn, straining to see anything that set them apart from the others, feeling that somehow he could spot the Pathfinder by the way he walked, moved, or carried his weapon. But he saw nothing unusual, just the normal hustle and bustle of a busy hangar filled with men doing their assigned tasks with cool efficiency. Stalker swore under his breath. It couldn't be one of his men. He would have known, wouldn't he? Stalker spied Link and waved him over. After mission action report finished and forwarded to the bridge boss. Link, how long have I known you? Link paused and thought for a moment. Ever since Mars, I guess. Must be just over 3 years. What's on your mind? Someone on the Cerberus sweep teams was a Pathfinder operative. You're joking, right? Who? I don't know, Link. I just had a chat with the bastards, and they knew almost before we did what we found on the sweep. Someone gave them the heads up. Link turned and matched Stalker's steely gaze, watching the activity in the hangar. I can't believe it was one of us, Stalker. I know these men, and I trust each and every one of them. Stalker spoke without breaking his gaze. I agree, Link. I won't start doubting men who would die for me if I asked them. It has to be one of the Marines. Marcelino. I thought about it, but I don't think so. He has been the company's CO for over a year. The Pathfinders have no reason to have an agent in the Marines for that long. It has to be one of his men, someone who has only joined the unit since news of the attack on the Cerberus reached Earth. And that's only a matter of days. Link frowned. So do we tell him? We can't approach the Major with this. He's a good man, but he would have his men paraded and under the microscope in a second. Link nodded in agreement. Yep, and they would know we're on to them. Are the men ready? We will be deploying to the surface as soon as the Poseidon has the Cerberus in tow. They're ready. The Major said we will set down well clear of the main settlement's outskirts and recon before infiltrating. Good, I want to know what we're walking into down there, and Link, eyes up on this one, in front and behind. Admiral Lev looked over the latest reports that we coming in from the dispersed units of his fleet. There have been several reports of wreckage, which on examination appeared to be from communications satellites and merchant ships, but as yet there were no indications of what or who had destroyed them. He frowned to himself, his already serious expression becoming even sterner. Ground troops were about to be deployed at several colonies, including on the central planet Pavonis Prime. There was still no communications from any of the tens of thousands of colonists in the system, and the silence bothered him, just like everything else about the mission. The presence of Pathfinders on a ship didn't improve his legendary temper, but they were there on the express orders of the UEL Security Council, so he would tolerate them, as much as he had to anyway. He snapped an order to the bridge communications officer, This was taking too long. He needed answers, and he needed them now. Admiral the Artemis reports she is deploying ground forces as we speak and will forward first reports back as soon as they have them. Lev didn't answer, he just gave a wave of his hand, and the grateful communications officer scurried away. 4 swift-foot transports swooped in low over the desolate terrain and dipped to the ground in a billowing swirl of dust, their doors opening as soon as they touched down. Stalker stepped onto the gravelly ground which crunched under his armored boots. Perimeter at 75 meters. Deploy right. He went down on one knee and swept the terrain with his ASBR at the ready, but saw nothing but barren rock. He threw a glance to the right and saw his company smoothly deploying into cover. He activated the TAC net. Arrow, this is Alpha 2-1. We're on the deck. Negative contact. Roger that 2-1. India Niner is in position. Commence your sweep. Stalker acknowledged and switched back to the commnet. Alpha 2-1 to all units. Tactical advance. Odds and evens. Let's go. Stalker paused and looked at his commander's HUD. He noted that half the units, now spread out in a staggered line to his right, began to advance while the other half provided overwatch. Stalker stole a glance to his left and saw Link and the other 6 men other of Alpha unit, the CCU, crouching and waiting for his lead. Link had his eliminator to his shoulder and was doing slow, deliberate sweeps. On his HUD, Stalker saw the first line of units stop and the second line begin to move forward. Stalker rose and, rifle across his chest, began to jog forward, the others matching his speed. As he jogged, Stalker couldn't help but think how much the planet reminded him of Mars in many ways. The rock and soil didn't have the same distinct red coloration, and instead the soil was various shades of gray with patches of dark black rock, which almost looked like jagged teeth rising from the gray soil. Pavoni's prime had been settled by several thousand colonists in dozens of separate settlements, the largest of which was their target and had a population of around 2,000 men, women, and children all told. The atmosphere of Pavoni's prime contained high levels of nitrogen as well as smaller parts of argon and neon, the combination making it barely breathable. The population surviving by wearing either enviro suits or mouth-fitted devices that provided small amounts of pure oxygen that mixed with the planet's atmosphere to make it breathable. Stalker did recall, however, that at a pinch you could breathe the atmosphere for a few hours before you would be overcome by nitrogen narcosis, although only at the cost of shortening your lifespan through lung and possible brain damage. Despite the risks, the attraction of the planet's small, scattered deposits of rare mineral was a strong draw card, and many people had braved the harsh conditions and lifestyle to try to make it big. Several minutes passed before Stalker first caught sight of the settlement as he crested a low, rocky ridgeline that was strewn with black marble like boulders. Stalker paused by a boulder and took a careful look over the clusters of buildings. It was immediately clear that something terrible had happened. The narrow streets between the buildings were strewn with debris of every possible type, the scene giving off the unmistakable aura of chaos. Several of the buildings were burnt out, and on the edge of town, the shattered remains of a short-haul shuttle lay perched on a rocky outcrop where it had come to rest. Stalker let his breath out. We're too late. His grip on his rifle tightened as his anger surged, and he struggled to control it. Stalker felt rage grow within him. He wanted revenge for the innocent lives that he knew had been lost, and in an instant, he was up and running. Link glanced across as his gaze was drawn to the sudden movement. He saw Stalker off and sprinting. What the hell? 21st on the CEO charge. As one, the whole company broke into a run and sprinted down the slope towards the town, a dull roar issuing from 200 throats. Stalker reached the nearest building, a single-story domed house, and seeing that the door was open, crashed inside just as the avalanche of black armored men reached the settlement and washed around its buildings. Stalker found himself in the main living area of a colonial civilian home. It was destroyed. Furniture was turned over and random pieces of clothing were scattered across the floor. Stalker swiftly moved from room to room and aggressively cleared the house, but it was empty. As he reached the final room, Stalker paused as something caught his eye. In the room were 2 overturned beds, One was blue, the other bright pink, and here, and their children's toys and clothes were scattered on the floor. Stalker looked past the overturned pink bed. In the wall, which was made from compacted blocks of the local gray soil, were deep scratch marks which formed a glyph-like symbol. Stalker stared at it entranced. He felt a presence and heard soft footsteps behind him, but did not turn, instead focusing on the symbol. It was a symbol he knew all too well. He had seen it cut into the skin of Red Legion fanatics on Mars and in the tunnels of Hellas. He looked closely at the glyph. It had been deliberately cut into the wall. Stalker's mind churned. Why here? Why now? Stalker turned it over in his mind, trying to think through his boiling anger. They knew we would find this. The bastards are taunting us. Boss, what's going on? Stalker ignored the question. Full sweep of the town now. Link heard the unmistakable growl of rage in his friend and commander's voice. Stalker. I said all units push forward and clear the town at the double quick now. Link just looked at his CEO, not sure how to react, and, after a moment, turned away. Spartan 2-1 to all units move up, tactical sweep, and clear, going fast and heavy. Link waited as one by one the company's units responded before leaving to follow them, leaving Stalker alone to his thoughts. Link advanced from building to building in short rushes, carefully stepping over the scattered item of people's lives as he moved forward with the advancing line of assault troops. The more Link saw of the settlement, the more he felt certain that the place had witnessed mass panic. Despite the signs of chaos, there were no visible signs of combat. In any case, the colonists hadn't been well armed. It was likely that the community had a small civil guard unit for the remote possibility of a serious crime or pirate attack, but other than that, they had been relatively defenseless. The damage, Link realized, seemed to be more of an indication of mass looting. Everything, it seemed, from every house, business, or storage building had been ransacked and scattered carelessly where it fell. Link's trained eye also noted that some of the doors of the houses had been apparently blown open by small explosive charges, the twisted door frames lying broken and discarded by the entrances. They had cleared about 2/3 of the town, and Link was moving towards the center of the line when he paused near a bulky soldier from Foxtrot who was giving cover to some of his unit who were clearing a house. Link was about to move on when he caught movement out of the corner of his eye. The Foxtrot trooper had seen it too and swung his rifle to bear. Movement left. Link reacted by quickly knocking the assault trooper's rifle aside. What the fuck? Check your fire, we're looking for civvies here. Link started off at a dead run, just as the scurrying figure disappeared out of sight between two buildings. Link tore around the corner of the building just in time to see the figure turn down a side street and set off in pursuit. In pursuit, heading northeast, contact, check fire. Check fire. Link hit top gear and began to close the distance. He could hear his heart beating furiously as he kept up with the weaving figure as it passed between buildings and through debris-strewn streets. Link was gaining ground and rounded a corner only seconds behind and found himself face to face with Pistol. There was a series of rapid shots, and Link felt several heavy impacts on his chest armor as he crash-tackled the figure at full speed, both going sprawling into the gray dust. There was a loud scream, and Link almost lost his grip on the squirming body in shock. With considerable effort, he pinned the person down, and using a wrist tap, got the pistol and tossed it away. After a few moments, the crazed, struggling died away and was replaced by pitiful sobbing. Link looked up as about a dozen Terra Nova soldiers charged around the corner, weapons at the ready. Stand down. Stand down. It's all right. We've got a survivor. The group paused and seemed to be in equal shock as they looked at the sobbing figure pinned beneath Link. Get a medic up here, quickly, and have a look in the nearby houses. Find me some blankets. Don't just stand there, go. The unit leader took a few steps back and started talking on the comm net, while some of the others went into the nearby buildings. Link, ignoring the chatter on the comm net, slowly, while keeping a firm grip, gently rolled his captive over. He was greeted by a mass of dirty, matted auburn hair. He brushed it gently away and found himself looking at the greenest eyes he had ever seen. Her tears had run down her face, leaving little trails in the dust on her skin. Link guessed her age at mid-20s to early 30s. Her eyes were darting around wildly. Link, realizing she was virtually catatonic. He looked her up and down, checking for injuries, but couldn't see any obvious wounds other than a few minor grazes on her hands. She was wearing a large coat that was several sizes too big for her. Link realized it must be cold on Pavoni's Prime. He hadn't noticed due to his suit's ACS temperature control. It was then that Link saw writing emblazoned on the epaulates of her tattered shirt. It read, "UES Cerberus." The words jumped out at him as she began to struggle again, and with some effort he restrained her. She started to sob and then broke into a coughing fit. It suddenly dawned on Link that she didn't have a breathing aid, and looking frantically, he saw a small oxygen inhaler unit in the dust nearby and quickly put it in her mouth. She abruptly spat it out and kept coughing. A Terra Nova soldier appeared next to him. "Let me see her." Link looked at him and saw the small Red Cross insignia on his shoulder plate that identified him as a medical specialist. The medic briefly examined her and drew a small needle from a thigh pouch. "Hold her tight." Link tightened his grip, and she tried to struggle again, but she was clearly at the end of her strength, and he held her easily. "This will calm her, specialist. Now get that inhaler in quickly." Link inserted the inhaler into her mouth, and the medic held it in place as she reflexively tried to expel it. There was a slight hiss as she drew through the device, and she seemed to calm instantly, although her eyes still flicked randomly. The medic helped Link wrap her in some blankets that had been found in a nearby house. As the medic continued to check her over, Link overheard on the comm net that the sweep had been completed and they had linked up with the I Company Marines on the edge of the settlement. The Marines had held a perimeter on the edge of the settlement to catch anything the Terra Nova had flushed out in their sweep, the sweep having revealed only one resident, dead or alive. Stalker kneeled down next to Link, but didn't speak. "We've got a survivor, boss, but I don't think she's from here. She's wearing a uniform shirt from the Cerberus." Stalker leaned closer and looked at the name. "She said anything?" "We had to sedate her. She's terrified. We need to get her out of here." Stalker nodded in agreement and activated his TAC net. "Arrow, this is Alpha 2-1. Go ahead, 2-1. Arrow, I need an immediate emergency evac. This location for precious cargo." "All received 2-1. Wait 1." A few moments later, the TAC net came back to life. "Affirmative, your request 2-1. Big Bird is on the way. Squawk, Ident Starling 7. All received, Arrow. 2-1 out." With the medic finished, Link gently picked her up. She didn't resist. The sedative had begun to work, and she seemed a lot calmer. As one, they moved to the edge of town, where there was a large enough clearing to set a transport down. About 15 minutes later, they heard the sound of an approaching swift foot. "Starling 7, this is Alpha 2-1. Blue smoke is the mark." "Roger that, 2-1. Starling is inbound." Stalker gave the signal to a nearby soldier, who unclipped a smoke grenade and turned its dial to the setting for blue smoke before tossing it into the middle of the large clearing. The swift foot appeared over the settlement and swooped in, making a perfect touchdown just as Marcelino and 2 platoons of Marines approached. Stalker quickly turned to Link and Foxtrot's unit commander. "Link, go with her, and take Foxtrot with you. No matter what, you and Fox don't leave her side. I don't care if the Admiral himself orders otherwise. Clear?" They both nodded. "I'll see you on the Artemis after we're done with our assessments here." Link nodded again, and gently carrying his charge, moved off towards the transport. Stalker watched him go. "Commander, keep him out of trouble, and watch your 6. Foxtrot's commander laughed, and with a wave to his unit, set off after Link, who was gently carrying his charge up the Swiftfoot's rear ramp. "Major, Commander," Marcelino looked after the departing Swiftfoot questioningly. "Found a survivor. She's on her way back to the Artemis. She?" "Yep." Marcelino shook his head in obvious surprise. "We have completed our sweep, Major. No other survivors and no bodies. It's just like the Cerberus. This place is like an empty tomb." "Indeed, we didn't encounter anyone flushed by your sweep either. What the hell happened here?" "I have no idea, Major, but I'm certain of one thing. This is only the beginning." Marcelino stood a little straighter. "What do you mean?" "Do you recall the Cerberus? Most of the electronic systems and weapon systems have been torn out." "I remember. It's the same here, Virtually every electronic device has been taken along with the people. Someone is probing us, trying to understand our technology, our weaknesses, and once they're satisfied they have our measure, it's going to get worse, a lot worse. Marcelino contemplated the words carefully before replying. I'm inclined to agree, Commander. Whoever or whatever did this, it's certainly not over. He looked back at the ghost town. This place is dead. Let's get the hell out of here, Commander. Link stood outside the medical bay as a fleet nurse attended to his charge. Around him in the passageway stood the men of Foxtrot in small groups, chatting quietly. Link was on the point of nodding off when the door opened and the nurse emerged, sealing the door behind her. How is she, ma'am? The nurse smiled slightly at Link's genuine concern. She'll be fine, Specialist. She has no serious injuries, just a few superficial cuts and bruises. Her exposure to the atmosphere doesn't seem to have caused any lasting damage to her respiratory system. I've got her on in 4 to help her dehydration. She needs her rest now and is not to be disturbed. Clear, Specialist? Yes, ma'am. You have my word. The nurse turned to leave, then paused. By the way, Specialist, I ran her DNA against the crew of the Cerberus, so I would have her medical records. Her name is Janet Combs. She was the first officer on the Cerberus. Without another word, the nurse turned and left. Link watched her go, but his mind was processing the information he had just received. How the hell did the first officer of the Cerberus ended up on Pavonis Prime alone? Link was still mulling over the same question when 30 minutes later an officer came down the passageway and caught his attention. He was wearing the perfectly crisp uniform of an intelligence branch captain and was flanked by 2 men wearing splinter camouflage DEA, which bore no insignia. Link took one look at them, and he knew who they were: Pathfinders. The captain walked past the men of Foxtrot as if they weren't there and paused next to Link. He was just about to reach for the door access panel when Link calmly put his arm across the doorway. She's not to be disturbed, Captain. The officer turned to Link coolly. The survivor is being relocated to the command ship's Specialist now. Link smiled at the glaring officer. I've got news for you, Captain, and it's all bad. You see, she's under the Terra Nova's jurisdiction, my jurisdiction, and will remain so until I receive word from my CO. Until that time, she's not going anywhere, especially with you. The captain, to his credit, kept his cool and returned an equally shallow smile as the one he was receiving from Link. I have the authority of the commanding fleet admiral. She's now my responsibility. You hearing me, Specialist? Now get out of my way before I take up the matter with your divisional commander. Link laughed. You do that. He'll get a good kick out of it, I'm sure. The captain, for the first time, seemed a little rattled and looked to be weighing up his options. Link just observed him casually, but then he noted his hand at his side edge slightly towards his sidearm. In a split second, Link turned deadly serious. Captain, if you wanted to take her by force, you should have brought more men. There was a series of clicks as weapons were readied, and the captain and his escorts looked warily behind them at the passageway, full of heavily armed black armored soldiers hidden behind their skull helmets. The captain struggled to regain control of the situation. I'm not leaving here without her. Link took a step forward and looked the captain in the eye. You're not leaving here with her either. I don't care if you bring the admiral himself down here. Until I am ordered otherwise by my CO, she stays. As Link looked into the captain's face, it remained a mask of cool calmness. But the captain's eyes were boiling with fury. Do you realize what you're doing? We're on the same side here. Have you forgotten that? The only one who has forgotten what side he's on is you. If not being on the same side as you is a fault, then I'll add it to my list. Now, piss off. The captain held Link's gaze for a moment, longer than pivoted on his feet, and left, his escorts following. Link and the Terra Nova men watched them go with cool detachment. Link knew he had made a dangerous enemy, but it wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last. Over the next few hours, medical staff came and went checking on their patient, but there was no sign of any more Pathfinders. Link had just dozed off when he felt a tap on his shoulder. He looked up to see the nurse whom he had spoken to earlier. She's awake, Specialist, and she has asked to speak to someone. If you want to speak to her, you can, but try not to upset her. Link stepped into the medical bay and made his way over to Janet's bedside and was immediately struck by how different she looked to the bedraggled figure he had tackled in the dust of Pavonis Prime only hours before. She still seemed slightly groggy, but he saw her eyes latch onto him. Her voice, when it came, was surprisingly strong and clear. Ior Tehanova. Yes, ma'am. Deputy Commander, 21st Company. Good, it means you'll have clearance. What ship is this? Where are we? You're on board the Artemis, and we're currently orbiting Pavonis Prime. Her eyes widened. Give me the captain. We're not safe here. Panic rising in her voice. Janet, we're surrounded by the entire Third Fleet. You're safe. Trust me. And to his relief, he saw her relax a little. Janet, I need you to tell me what happened. Who attacked your ship? It was a calculated risk, and Link knew it, but he had to weigh her emotional health up with the desperate need for information. She looked at him for a moment before answering in a surprisingly calm voice. I don't know what they were. We encountered several unknown ships. They jammed our communications and then attacked us. Somehow they got on board. They were everywhere. We never stood a chance. Her voice began to break a little. I saw them die. The captain, the Marines, they were torn to pieces. Link waited while she swallowed hard and regained her composure. You have to tell them there's no negotiating with these things, no reasoning, you understand? They are as hostile as hell itself. Link gently pressed her for more information. Janet, how did you get to Pavonis Prime? Is there anyone else still on the surface? She looked away. I got to an escape pod. Only me, it jumped me there. I couldn't contact anyone on the surface, but had nowhere else to go, so I landed the pod near a settlement, so I could try to find help. But they had already been there. There's no one left. Her voice trailed off, and she continued to stare off into space. The fleet is sweeping the system as we speak. If anyone else made it, we'll find them. She looked up. It won't make any difference. They won't find anyone. These things don't make mistakes, and they don't leave survivors. Link stood in silence, slightly shocked by the utter conviction in her voice. Can you take me to the bridge? I need to speak to the captain. Is Captain Jansen still in command? Yes, she is. Are you sure you're up to this? She reached across and smoothly removed a long 4-needle from one of her arms, and then swung her feet to the floor and stood up. As the sheet fell away, Link saw she was totally naked, her body looking like carved marble, perfect in every way, only small bruises and scratches breaking the skin's perfection. Link quickly averted his eyes. What's the matter, specialist? Never seen a woman before. Pass me that robe, will you, before I freeze to death. Link grabbed a robe of a nearby hook, and without looking passed it to her. When he finally turned, he saw a slight twisted smile on her face. Well, an assault soldier with manners. Just when I thought my world couldn't get any stranger. Link couldn't help himself but quip. Well, between killing people we do, try to practice our manners. He saw a shadow pass across her face and realized what he had said and began an apology, but she waved it away and, to his surprise, stepped up and took his arm. What's your name? Deputy Commander, 21st Terra Nova. Lincoln, ma'am. Well, Lincoln, my name isn't ma'am. It's Janet. Now, please escort me to the bridge. While Janet talked with Captain Jansen, Link recorded a verbal report and transmitted it to Fleet Intelligence and to the 1st and 2nd Terra Nova before heading down to the landing bay to meet up with Stalker. He found Stalker leaning up against a bulkhead, watching his men performing equipment checks, his helmet lying at his feet. He looked tired. Stalker looked up and saw Link approaching. Heard you had a few problems with the intelligence branch, Link. Just the usual, boss, said Link, a grin crossing his face. Stalker shook his head. How's our survivor? Link's face turned serious. Janet Combs. She was the first officer on the Cerberus. Stalker raised his eyebrow questioningly. She got away on an escape pod. The ship was boarded and overrun by... Link paused, seeking the right word. There's no other word for a boss. It was overrun by aliens. Yeah, not really a surprise, is it, Link? Stalker ran his hand through his hair and looked off into the landing bay. I failed them, Link. We failed them. The reports have come in. The entire system's colonists are missing. Not one person save your first officer remains. We knew this was coming. We had to know. Their blood is on someone's hands. We had the knowledge and did nothing to prepare. We left them out here alone. We left them alone and undefended. We had 3 years, Link. 3 years to prepare, and we did nothing. And the innocent have paid the price for our lack of foresight. Today I feel ashamed to wear the uniform. Link stood in silence. He wasn't a man who spoke much at the best of times, and he knew Stalker needed to vent, so he just waited. The UEDF is weak link. We're still on a peacetime footing. We're not equipped or ready for what's coming. The mistakes on Mars, the losses we took, and the hard lessons we learned should have been a wake-up call, but no one has acted. This is going to be bigger. It's going to be worse. Stalker left Link in the bay and headed for the bridge. As he walked, he thought things over in his head and found new resolve. Weakness was something he couldn't afford right now. He also made a mental note to thank Link for listening. He had needed to get that off his chest. Stalker nodded to the Marine Honor Guard as he entered the bridge and saw Captain Jansen shooting off orders to her bridge officers. Next to her was a woman who was dressed in what looked like a bathrobe. Despite the strange sight, Stalker ignored her and walked up to the captain, who turned to him questioningly. All Marine and Terra Nova units have been retrieved and are back on board, ma'am. What's the situation? The situation, Battle Commander, is that we're leaving. The Third Fleet is returning to Earth post-haste. There's nothing here for us. This system no longer our primary concern. Stalker was more than a little surprised to hear that the fleet was departing so soon. May I inquire as to what is our primary concern, ma'am? Earth is now the concern, Commander. Major fleet units are returning home from all systems. Earth is our first priority. We're abandoning our colonies? No, we're reinforcing Earth, from what I understand. The First Fleet will be reinforced by heavy units from all other fleets to ensure Earth's security. All remaining fleet elements will patrol our colonies, or in the case of the remoter systems, evacuate them to more easily defended areas. Stalker paused, absorbing the news. What does the public know? Jansen shifted her weight a little and let out a slow breath. Nothing, as yet, from what I understand. They aren't even aware that the Third Fleet has deployed to Pavonis. At that, Captain Jansen, apparently finished, turned away and went back to directing her ship. Stalker, taking the hint, headed for the bridge exit. As Stalker left, he glanced again at the strange woman on the bridge, only to see her green eyes coolly observing him as he went. On the spacious bridge of the UES Africa, Admiral Sergei Lev watched as the units of his fleet began to form up to withdraw. He glanced to the polished hardwood floor, where a digital slate still lay where he had thrown it some 15 minutes earlier. It contained a final report of the system-wide reconnaissance, reports of dozens of colonies pillaged and abandoned, and of thousands of UEL citizens missing.